Welcome to the Retro Video Store Podcast.
Welcome everyone to the Retro. Sorry, I can say it. Welcome everyone to the Retro Video Store Podcast. I'm your host Eric.
Hi, Eric.
And that's my co-host Neil.
I'm Neil. And who got called up at the last minute?
That would be David. He's out there. Him and Smokey the Bear.
Or if you're in Ireland, Smacky the Frog.
Really, is there a Smacky the Frog?
I don't know. According to Mitch Hedberg. No, seriously. Mitch Hedberg does this whole bit like he was going to do his joke. He's got jokes about Smokey the Bear. And he's like, do you have Smokey the Bear over here? And they're like, no, they have Smacky the Frog. Would I fuck with you?
Of course. We're going to be talking a lot about stand-up comedians today and stand-up comedy in general and lots of that kind of stuff. Because today we're talking about Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. I was tallying up our episodes on the podcast, and we have not done very many straight-up comedies. I think we avoid them because we just don't want to just go, hey, remember that part? That was cool.
Remember that? That was good. We have watched movies that are laughably bad, though.
Yeah, that's true. But tallying up the nearly 200 movies we have watched 36 action movies, action and martial arts movies. I kind of combine those together. 65 sci-fi fantasy movies. Only 9 dramas. Movies like, Pulp Fiction and The Godfather and things like that are just kind of straight up dramas. Only 9 of those. And we've had 11 comedies. Kind of like just straight up comedy movies. But what would you think would be the biggest number of movies we've watched so far?
Let me think. Let me take all I know about you, and I'm thinking horror.
Yes, 73 horror movies that we have watched. And you sent me a text, and I responded that I thought the exact same thing. That seemed low for the number of movies that we've done. That we've only done 73 horror movies, and sci-fi and fantasy is just right behind it at 65. But spooky season's coming up, so we'll pump up those numbers for scary movies coming up pretty soon. Yeah. But as far as comedies go, this is a fun 80s comedy. It is very light kind of movies. It's after you watch it, you go, oh, that was pretty funny, but it's kind of doesn't really stick in your mind after you watch it.
You're not taking any life lessons away from this. You've got
exactly.
You've got the everyman who's made it big, who still stays the everyman, and then they stick it to the snobs.
Yes, snobs versus slobs. It's a classic formula. But before we start talking about Back to School, let's do what we always do. Neil, what did you watch this week?
I hadn't given any damn thought. Normally, I try to remember everything that I watched so we can talk about it. I did go see Deadpool and Wolverine again in the theater. I went with my wife. I went with my wife and a buddy that I play bagpipes with. We went and saw that. Watched a lot of Olympics. Really, I think if we had the TV on, we watched a lot of Olympics. And then just some series that my wife enjoys just to kind of have in the background when we were doing things. It was back to school. So, it was really busy, getting stuff ready for the boy and trying to get everything done because they went back to school Thursday and Friday. So we were just kind of trying to jam in any last minute summer fun we could Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So not a whole lot. Went to the theater and then that was it. Even today, I don't think we've watched any movies, just back to school. So let's hear it.
I'm almost 100% the same. We watched a insane amount of Olympics, lots of track and field, lots of taekwondo, lots of weightlifting and diving and wrestling. I mean, I just when it was on, and I have YouTube TV, so it broadcasts like you see this normal stuff on NBC and USA and E. But they have 2 like recap channels where you could watch stuff, from the earlier in the week, and then you had it on demand on Peacock where you could watch pretty much almost anything you wanted to. So we watched a ridiculous amount of Olympics, including beach volleyball.
Again, shocked.
But yeah, just a huge amount. And then Jamie and I, we kind of had a date night, so we went and had dinner and stayed at a hotel and just kind of had a cool day night, which we still wind up watching the Olympics at the hotel after we tried to go to the outdoor pool, which was freezing cold in Colorado. It was supposed to be heated, and it was like freezing.
Yeah, you don't. If you've gone through the effort to leave home, go eat dinner, get a hotel room, last thing you want to do is jump into that pool and then get back out and go back upstairs. Shrinkage.
Yeah, yes. The weird thing is they had a hot tub outside, and it didn't look like that crowded. And then we got down there, and there was like 6 people in it, and there was like 2 creepy dudes that were just watching people in the pool. And one guy watched Jamie get into her, take her little bathing suit cover off, and I was just like, yeah, we're not getting into the hot tub. Let's go back up.
Hot tubs at hotels, it's basically just boiled jizz.
That's true, though. Yeah, it's just a gross germ stew of people.
No way I would want to get in one of those things.
Yeah, that's true.
Same thing with public pools. Everyone's like, why don't you go swim? Because I don't feel like swimming in chlorine and piss.
Yeah. That's like going to the Great Wolf Lodge. We have a Great Wolf Lodge here, and it's got like water slides and stuff like that. And that kiddie pool is like 75% urine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We took Joe one time. We enjoyed going on, there's the thing. It looked like the giant bowl. It spins you around and flushes you down the center. Oh, I told Joe, it's like, I can make this thing go faster. So, I would lean back and squeeze the sides of the inner tube in, and it would just rocket us through there. And we came pretty close to coming off the lip of it. Mm-hmm. And we just whipped around. There were people that were coming in. So I had backed it up because we had gone around so many times and came down, and I was asked gently to not do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But it made inside the inner tube, it made me the coolest dad in the Great Wolf Lodge. Outside the inner tube, it just made me the asshole, which I'm used to. It's okay.
We go on medical calls at the Great Wolf Lodge all the time. People hurting themselves on the water slide. I'll cut this part out, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All the time.
I'm surprised you didn't have a medical call while you were watching beach volleyball. There was an injured wrist. Did I send you that meme?
Yeah, you sent me that meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty funny.
But as soon as I see something like that, there's 2 people that goes to, you and my kid. Instantly.
So yeah, the Olympics were a lot of fun this year. I probably watched more Olympics this year than any other year previously, just because it was so in the streaming age. It's so much fun just to pick out things to watch. I watched a lot of judo and taekwondo. Taekwondo is weird though. It's just the way they score.
Yeah,
it's just not as exciting as you would think it is. Some of them were pretty exciting. People getting kicked flush in the face.
I'm still, to this day, I'm a firm believer in Taekwondo. Mm. If you're going to do martial arts, do something where you're going to learn how to fight.
Yeah. It was just, I don't know, it just didn't seem to be, it was interesting because they would like be across from each other and then they would like get close to each other, then wrap each other up and then have to separate. And maybe one of them would score a punch or a kick very rarely. It was... Yeah. But we're not here to talk about Taekwondo, are we?
We're here to further our education. We are going back to school.
Yes. And this movie, and as with many, many movies that we have talked about, and going to sound like a broken record, did not see this in the theater, but I saw this on HBO many a time.
Fuck you and HBO.
Did you see this in the theater, or did you?
No, I went and saw this. I went and saw this in the theater. I was like 14 or something when this came out. So I had my motorcycle license. Yeah, I had my motorcycle license. So I was going into town to see movies because not all of us had cable.
I forgot to say. Well, when we get to it, let's go ahead and read the Internet Movie Database tagline, and then I'll include the rest.
To help his discouraged son get through college, a fun-loving and obnoxious rich businessman decides to enter the school as a student himself.
Mm-hmm. Very simple. This movie is simple. It's just a joke delivery system to get Rodney in different situations where he can do his jokes.
Where he can be Rodney.
Yeah, exactly. And
see, I don't necessarily go with obnoxious.
Yeah, I don't think he's obnoxious either. He's just funny as hell.
I like people I've come across a few people like this character over the course of my life, and I like people like that because they are. I like people that are genuine, people that are themselves, regardless of the situation or where they're at, where they come from. Like, a lot of people haven't had like the outrageous success that you and I have had in podcasting, and we haven't let that change us.
Yes. Screaming into the void for 4 years now. So it was directed by Alan Metter, who has a weird filmography. I didn't really include it. He did Girls Just Want to Have Fun in 1985, Back to School, Moving with Richard Pryor, which I remember watching a lot as a kid. I couldn't tell you anything about it now. I just know that Dana Carvey played a person with like multiple personalities or something in the movie, and that was funny. Cold Dog Soup with Randy Quaid. Police Academy Mission to Moscow, which I never saw. I think I was out after Police Academy 3. I think it was once they started going to like PG-13 and stuff. It was just yeah. Billboard Dad with the Olsen twins. Ugh. Then he did the Growing Pains movie in the year 2000. So yeah, not a huge filmography. Definitely unusual.
He's just cranking out winner after winner after winner, this guy.
The weird thing about this movie is this movie was huge. It was released on June 13th of 1986. It's only 96 minutes long. Budget of $91 million, but made $91.3 million at the box office. It was...
Wait, what did you say the budget again?
$11 million.
Oh, okay. 11 million. I thought you said a higher number. I was tripping out there.
$11 million, and it was the number 4 movie in the United States in 1986. It beat out Aliens and Star Trek The Voyage Home. So Top Gun was number 1. Crocodile Dundee was number 2. Karate Kid Part 2 was number 3. And Back to School was number 4. That is insane to me that this movie was that big in 1986.
I remember going to see all those movies. I mean, especially Top Gun, because we took the Danish exchange student with us, and I think I don't remember who I saw this movie with, but I just remember that being a very, very good year for movies.
Yeah, it beat out Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Stand By Me, Cobra. Almost made double what Cobra made. Poltergeist 2, Pretty in Pink, The Fly. Rocky 4. I think Rocky 4 bled over from 85 into 86.
85, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot. Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So it made a lot of money over some pretty stiff competition. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Deadly Friend, Blue Velvet. So there's a lot of good movies in 9.5 weeks. But I was really legitimately surprised at $91 million. That's a lot of money back in 1986 dollars too. So pretty interesting. But going back to what I said earlier, I just watched the shit out of this movie on HBO. It was on all the time. And as a big aside, and this is probably going to take a few minutes, is trying to go back and remember how big Rodney Dangerfield is or was. And I remember him being on The Tonight Show all the time. And I went down the YouTube rabbit hole and I watched probably like an hour and a half of Rodney Dangerfield comedy bits on YouTube. And it got me thinking about how big The Tonight Show was as a kid, because when I was little, I remember my grandfather and my dad and everybody staying up after the news and watching The Tonight Show. And the only time I knew it existed was when I was sick too sick to go to bed or whatever, and they let me sit on the couch and watch the Tonight Show with your parents. And it just seemed like such an adult thing. Oh my God, there's a funny show that's on after the news. And, there's the guy who comes out and talks and says funny stuff for the first 10 minutes. And it just seems so amazing to me. And I remember it was just a big treat for me as a kid to watch the Tonight Show. And I watched a lot of Johnny Carson clips today too. And it just seemed like such like an old era. Johnny Carson, and you had like Don Rickles and, just all the different comedians that were regulars. But then Johnny Carson was so big introducing other comedians. I remember seeing Sam Kinison. Well, going back to Rodney Dangerfield. Rodney Dangerfield had a young comedian, Rodney Dangerfield's Young Comedian special every year on HBO. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing like Jerry Seinfeld for the first time, and Rita Rudner, and Sam Kinison, of course, we'll get back to, and Andrew Dice Clay and Jim Carrey, and all these huge people were introduced both by Rodney Dangerfield and Johnny Carson.
So let's talk about Johnny Carson, because I had a TV, and the only real station that we got was NBC. You could get PBS mm-hmm. occasionally, but there was nothing on it. So I used to go to bed, and I would lay there, and then I would turn the contrast way down, and then I'd get the TV on, turn the contrast way down. So it was basically just like the occasional like white line, mm-hmm. and would listen to the Tonight Show constantly just for the comedy. But the great thing about Johnny Carson was if he had a comedian on that was doing well, or especially like the old school guys like Don Rickles and Rodney Dangerfield, or even like Henny Youngman would come on. He would just come. He was so good a comedian that he would just feed them and just let them work, mm-hmm. and just let them go crazy. I remember I watched the night that I guess Don Rickles had guest hosted and broke Johnny Carson's cigarette box. And then John Rickles was filming C.O. Sharkey, I believe was the show he had for a while, because it was not that great, but I love Don Rickles. And he goes across the hallway to give him shit while he's filming, and did it on the Tonight Show. And then they put it on the Tonight Show.
So like basically broke the fourth wall of what was going on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, it was always so good. And another quick aside, I looked it up. 91 million in 86 equals $255,387,795.06 today.
So that's a huge movie.
It was a success.
Yeah, it's a huge movie. And I'm going back to the Tonight Show. I remember if Johnny Carson liked you, he would let you do your set, and then he would bring you as a guest to sit down and talk to.
Yeah.
And, and like going back to the ones with where he was so good at just reiterating, he would just feed them. And how's your health? Oh, let me talk to you about my doctor, Dr. Vinny Boombats, or whatever,
Dr. Vinny Boombats. I saw him do, was it the night Stephen Wright premiered? Mm-hmm. And he's like, this guy is crazy. You're going to love this. And he came out and everyone's cheering, and he just went, thanks. And just killed, doing literally nothing. So good.
So good. And it just, that was like, to me, stand-up comedy was so huge for me as a kid. I would watch all the specials, all the young comedian shows, watch Johnny Carson, and watch David Letterman, and any all the big specials as a kid were so important to me, like Robin Williams at the Met and George Carlin, and just obviously Eddie Murphy. Yeah. Delirious and Raw, and just all those were so important. Robert Klein I thought was funny. They used to, for some reason, HBO always had Robert Klein as a comedian. They would give a special every year. And I probably don't think he was funny now, but back then I thought he was amusing enough for me to go, that was pretty funny. He would watch. Yeah,
he was like that same caliber as Paul Reiser. But that was the neat thing, was because Dave Letterman was kind of that same school. And Letterman would have comics on all the time, even up into like late when he was on CBS. He would have on comics, and I've watched Jimmy Kimmel a few times, and I've watched, who's the other guy,
Jimmy Fallon.
I've watched Jimmy Fallon a little bit, and I've seen musical acts, but I've never really seen comedians.
Mm-hmm. Conan O'Brien had way more comedians on his show back in the day, and I used to watch Conan religiously because it was just so stupid. They had the Walker Texas Ranger Lever and all the other stupid skits that Conan had. But yeah, late night TV is where you were introduced to so many people, and Rodney Dangerfield was one of those. And Rodney Dangerfield kind of was a bridge to like the old 60s, 70s comedians, but he was still funny enough and so influential that he carried over into the 80s and 90s, and he had so many people that were with him. So you always remember him in Caddyshack, especially. That was where
it's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, Caddyshack was a super huge movie, and he stole the show in that one. And of course, he had Easy Money was one that was I remember seeing as a kid. That was it was pretty big early HBO movie. I think it came out like in 1980. That was a pretty big one. And then of course this one was huge.
I think now the only reason I know any new comedians now, I think it's you get a Netflix special. Because it used to be Comedy Central. Comedy Central would do you would get like a little special on that. Now it just seems like it's all headed towards Netflix, and I guess now Hulu is starting to get in on that. I guess Bill Burr has got a comedy thing.
Yeah, and like Nate Bargatze's on Amazon, so everybody's kind of thrown out these specials now. And I still watch a few of them. There are a few comedians that I still pay attention to, and it's just kind of funny to see like the last wave that was hitting was your Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, and all these other kind of people. But now it's like it's Shane Gillis's time, and the guy who does Dr. Phil, Adam Ray's time, and Tony Hinchcliffe and stuff like that. It seems like there's a new wave of people that are,
as long as it's not Joe Coy. As long as it's not
Joe Coy's annoying. Some of his, I find his podcast is funny, but I don't like his stand up as well. That's like Bert Kreischer. Cannot stand his stand up, but I think his podcasts are funny. But I wouldn't. But right back to school.
To school. I see what you did.
But Rodney Dangerfield just was super influential, always funny. He really brought it. And I guess his comedy persona was very opposite of the way he was for real, that he was very serious and very, he was very serious about the way he appeared. But once he got on stage, he was very self-deprecating, and that was his whole act. But he was quite different and had kind of a tough early life. His mom was kind of emotionally distant and didn't really pay attention to him. His dad was gone, so he had kind of a hard time being young. And then he started writing one-liners and doing comedy, and then he gave it up because he wasn't making a living, and didn't wind up coming back and started becoming more popular.
He was an acrobatic high diver at one point.
Yeah, that's crazy that that's true.
That's like the only trivia I know about Rodney Dangerfield. Is like he was an acrobatic high diver at one point.
Well, remember how important comedy albums were? I remember No Respect was a huge one.
Remember the stupid amount of time you and I both spent driving into Farmington listening to that damn Adam Sandler album.
What the hell happened to me? Yes. That was...
I want to piss in that guy's fucking gas tank.
That is so stupid and so funny, but I would listen to that one always. Like, the buffoon goes on a date with the school's valedictorian. I looked at my asshole in the mirror today. It blew my fucking mind.
The other good one was the night time is the right time.
It's so dumb. But the Rodney Dangerfield's No Respect, and then he had the Rappin' Rodney album. Remember that one? Like came out in '83.
It's just Rappin' Rodney. Yeah.
And he was a beer commercial guy for a long time too.
That's why they were always chugging Miller Lite in that movie.
Yeah, Miller Lite. He was huge for that. Miller Lite beer. And yeah, he was just kind of a cultural just icon. He was there all the time, and he was just present there. The cast was pretty good. Rodney Dangerfield, of course, Thornton Mellon. Sally Kellerman is Dr. Diane Turner. She's 49 in this movie. I was went to look at it. I was like, how old is Sally Kellerman in this movie? 49. Burt Young as Lou. He's not playing he's playing Polly, but a better Polly, I guess.
Yes.
A better version of Polly. And he did a lot of movies, and I wasn't really I remember Burt Young was in the Amityville Horror sequel, the Amityville 2, The Possession, and he was like the super abusive dad who wound up the son wound up shooting everybody. That's supposedly like the prequel of the Amityville Horror, but he was a real jerk in that one. And then let's talk about Robert Downey Jr. looking like a kid in this movie.
He's on his original teeth. He's got his original teeth in this.
Yes, he did have his original teeth.
How long ago that was?
His very scary looking original teeth. And you could tell he was going to be a star or something like that because he had a very small part in this movie, but when he was on, he was funny. And I thought he was pretty good in this movie. I just remember before his whole drug arrest and all that kind of stuff like that, he was part of that Brat Pack, and he was on the worst season ever of Saturday Night Live, without a doubt. The worst season ever of SNL. It had him and Anthony Michael Hall and Randy Quaid for some reason was in that lineup, and they fired everybody except for John Lovitz. John Lovitz did the Tommy Flanagan, the compulsive liar or whatever. His character, and he was the only one that they left. That left after that season. I mean, that came back after that season. But yeah, it was bad.
It was, agreed. It was very, very bad. But I haven't really watched much Saturday Night Live lately at all. It was been off my radar for a very long time.
It's still funny. It has its moments. It's just like, I think people, this is another aside, people tend to romanticize the SNL of their youth. And we had a really good time when we were kids because it was Phil Hartman and Mike Myers and Dana Carvey and that was a hell of a Chris Rock, David Spade, really good cast. But there were some stinkers too on that last 30 minutes of each episode. Not every episode was a knock him out of the park episode. There was a lot of shitty ones. Even Tiny Elvis, man.
Man, look at that thing. That thing's huge. I can never eat that.
That thing's huge, man. That's huge.
Good one, Tiny E.
Yeah, and then Sam Kinison is in this movie. This really put him on the map for a lot of people. I love that comedy album, Have You Seen Me Lately?
Yeah. I
listened to that one over and over and over again. That was one of my favorite comedy albums of all time.
Him on Carson when he comes out and he starts singing very seriously. Are you lonesome tonight?
Yeah, I actually watched that today too.
But you skipped Paxton Whitehead, Dr. Philip Barbet.
Yes, he was pretty good.
He did a voice, and I remember recognizing it in Rover Dangerfield.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Rover Dangerfield. He did a voice in that.
I have not seen Rover Dangerfield. That's pretty funny.
You look it up and watch the trailer at least.
Yeah, I will. That's pretty funny. Rover Dangerfield. That is funny.
It's like 1991. You were a senior that year.
Yes, I was. That's M. Emmett Walsh is the coach. Terry Farrell. I did not recognize that it was her until I looked up the cast list. I go, hey, she was on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, that was Jadzia Dax. In this is where the science fiction comes in, because in what universe would she look at Keith Gordon and then look at William Zabka and go, you know what? I want the little dude from Christine. That's what I want.
Yes, and she towered over him in this movie.
It would have been more believable if she would have jumped Kurt Vonnegut's bones when he showed up.
Yes, and then there's of course Adrienne Barbeau playing another witchy character. She's good at those. I just remember her in Creep Show when she's just whining and bitching at Hal Holbrook until she gets eaten by the monster in the box.
Was she the one that was in Swamp Thing?
Yes, she was in Swamp Thing. She was in Escape from New York.
Yep.
She was on Maude, the TV show. The TV show that was too adult for me to understand when I was a kid.
Is
There
it
was a lot of
now?
shows that I hated as a kid. My mom used to like Mary Hartman, which was an awful show. It was just a terrible show. Maude was one of the shows. And MASH. I could not stand MASH as a kid.
Really? You didn't like MASH? I
can appreciate it now, but as a kid, I was just like, oh my God, this is the worst freaking show ever. I don't want to watch a show about the Korean War. I want to watch, something funny.
I would wait up like all night to watch Kung Fu movies and MASH on the weekends.
I can appreciate it now. When I'm older, I can see the humor and everything like that. But as a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, it's just like, this is the worst. As soon as I heard that theme, I'm like, no, we got to go to bed. They would show MASH reruns, and as soon as they came on, it was time to go to bed. Harold Ramis was the one of the writers and producers of this movie. He was responsible for lots of cool stuff. Let's talk about the plot a little bit because we've got to.
I do want to throw in, because he was in the movie, Danny Elfman, and my wife wanted to make sure that you knew that the monster from Critters. Whenever he sings and opens his mouth, my wife thinks he bears a striking resemblance to the Critter. So I'm bringing that up.
What are they called?
Something like that. I've done my due diligence, babe. I told him.
All right.
All right.
So Danny Elfman, he's done a lot of movies. I keep bringing up the movie Forbidden Zone, and it came out in 1982. It is, if you want to watch a movie that'll just make you wonder what the hell. Forbidden Zone. Check it out. Came out in 1982. He was scoring the songs for the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo. Really, really odd. And he plays the devil in that one. He did Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Back to School. One thing you can find, and this is as a vinyl collector, it's kind of a cool pickup, is you can find a combo LP, and half of it is Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and the other half is Back to School. Back to School. It's kind of a cool find if you're into soundtracks to check out. Did Summer School, Beetlejuice. Once he started getting with Tim Burton, that's where you get the whole
the collab skyrockets.
Yeah, exactly. That's where he's been, Batman, and just so many movies after that. Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Night Before Christmas. So many movies that Mars Attacks. He's done a ton of movies. Sleepy Hollow. So him he did a really good job in the original Spider-Man theme. Tons of collaborations with Sam Raimi and Tim Burton. Good stuff. I do enjoy Oingo Boingo. Some of their music is pretty good.
So honestly, other than the stuff he's done in movies and Dead Man Party, that's all I've got.
Mm-hmm. There was Only a Lad is a pretty good one. There's a couple of weird songs, good stuff. If it comes on, I'll listen to it. If it's on like First Wave on Sirius XM, I'll listen to some Oingo Boingo, but I don't really have anything in my collection to go back on. Lou, played by Burt Young. Of course, we talked about him a little bit. Best known as Paulie, the deadbeat hanger-on of Rocky.
He's the first one in his family to walk upright.
So this movie is super funny. I just remember watching it tons of times. I did like the flashback with the young Jason Hervey pretending to be. Yeah,
he gives us the neck pull. Ugh.
Yes, exactly. These grades, you're a baloney. And all the tall and fat stores. And the Melon Patch Kids I thought were pretty funny.
They're abandoned.
Everybody in the staff is fat. Lots of fat jokes in this movie. And Adrienne Barbeau is his mean wife who's cheating on him. I always remember the scene where he makes that sandwich.
Yes. And it looked pretty good too. I mean, he had meatballs. He threw some deviled eggs in there.
Yeah, and some mushrooms and stuff like that. He takes that bread and he hollows it out.
Yeah, I hate small food. He sticks a beer in his pocket. He goes out with a sandwich. It's a solid idea. The older I get, the more I really appreciate that. Look, I'm not enjoying this social event. This is stupid. I'm going to get it the way it needs to be done, and I'm going to go off by myself. Thanks.
You talked about Dr. Barbet. Remember college registration before the internet?
God,
holy crap.
God, do I remember that. And even before so it went from the cattle call like that, and then when I was in school, it went from that, and then it went to phone. You had to phone it in.
Jamie remembered exactly that. I remember that vaguely, having to call and try to race to get the classes that you wanted on the phone.
You had a certain window you had to call in, and you called in to do that. And then, I think the last one was I did a master's degree, but that one was, that one was online. Yeah, that was online registration for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that just that would just suck. I do love the 80s setting. I love 80s movies and just the fashions. This one I love that it captures that kind of like late 80s kind of look that started, kind of permeating the movies.
Collars are popped in this movie.
Collars are popped. Hair is feathered. Lots of acid wash jeans and jackets.
Can I just say, and I know we're going to talk about it, but William Zabka can play a dick. That guy can play a dick so well. And by all accounts, everything I've read, great guy. But he can play an asshole so well.
It's funny you should mention that because we've pretty much done the whole Zabka filmography. If you think about it, we've done his whole major movements, the major Zabka contribution to movies.
He's got
done the Karate Kid.
He's got a great scene in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yes, he does. I just remember the guy, like they're waiting for the guy to lose his arm. And he's so close. So we've done the Karate Kid, just one of the guys, the Karate Kid Part 2. We haven't done Part 3 yet. And now we have done Back to School. So that's the major stuff. I haven't really watched too much of the Cobra Kai show. I just haven't. I hear it's cheesy and funny, but I've never got into it.
I just can't do the martial arts in it, man. It's so bad. It's like, hey, we're going to be in a series where we're getting paid to pretend like we know how to do some martial arts. Should we learn some? Nah. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine.
We skipped the critical consensus. You want to hit the critical consensus?
Oh, we did. We haven't really talked about the movie, and we're almost 40 minutes in. Back to School yielded $91.3 million domestically, and that was the sixth highest grossing film of 1986, as well as the second highest grossing comedy film of the year behind Crocodile Dundee. Records state that in addition to the rental and theatrical gross it received, it went on to gross $108,634,920 U.S. American dollars globally. Holy crap. You look like you had something to say. I'm thinking maybe it was just gas because you were drinking.
No, it was a big crack of thunder while I was muted. And a big old crack of thunder happened. I was like, did you hear that?
On Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 88%, and that's based on 40 reviews. It's got an average of 6.9 out of 10. The site's consensus is Back to School gives Rodney Dangerfield plenty of room to riff and supports the freewheeling funny man with enough of a story to keep things interesting between punchlines. Metacritic, it has a score of 68 out of 100 based on reviews from 9 critics, indicating a generally favorable review, and audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A- on an A to F scale. Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times noted that Dangerfield seems to be setting the film's brisk pace and flawless timing himself. Yeah, he wrote it. Nina Darnton wrote in the New York Times that the film is a good-natured potpourri of gags, funny bits, populist sentiment, and anti-intellectualism. Robert Ebert's Chicago's, I don't think it's anti-intellectualism. I think it's thumb stuff up your ass-ism.
Yeah, because it's all about him getting an education.
Going to get an education, but like keeping it real. Like, let's not. Anyway, Roger Ebert's Chicago Sun-Times 3-star review described the film as routine but pleasant, which has been used to describe Roger himself, but that was Mrs. Ebert. Yet elevated by Dangerfield's persona. This is exactly the sort of plot Marx or Fields would have appeared in. Dangerfield brings in something they might also brought along, a certain pathos.
All right, Roger. Yeah, and there's so many comedies in the 80s that are like this. They're just kind of very light. You watch them, you remember them, you laugh at them. and then you don't really, like you said, you just don't really learn any major lessons from them, but they're just a fun watch. And I remember watching the original Police Academy as a kid and thought it was like the greatest, funniest movie of all time. Now I cannot sit through 5 minutes of it. Also, the same with Police Academy 2, Citizens on Patrol, which I actually probably watched more because that had increased Bobcat Goldthwait in that movie.
He was really fun.
Yeah.
He was really fun as well. Okay, so how are we going to do this without making the next 20 minutes? Like, remember that part? That was funny. Remember that?
Funny.
That was pretty good. Funny. How's this going to happen?
Well, I do just think of the part that always sticks out. There's two parts that really always stick out to me besides the sandwich scene. That's three. But Sam Kinison as the history teacher, that was always just the best, funniest part of the movie where he totally stuck out. I was down on my knees in rice patties.
Machine guns, it didn't work. Looking for Charlie.
Yeah, it's just so funny. Really nails that scene.
Which is interesting because my dad served in the military during the Vietnam conflict. And I just don't remember my dad ever looking as young as Sam Kinison did in that movie. that could just be because, that's your dad. Your dad's never young. You don't ever picture your father as young. I for one, and this is how sad it is, I remembered the Klimt joke. Joke. I remembered the Klimt joke, but I'd forgotten it was because they had, a print of a Gustav Klimt on the wall. And myself being an art nerd and working in visual arts, as soon as he starts rolling across it, I'm sitting there next to my wife and she's got her foot out. I was rubbing her foot while we're watching, and I kind of tapped her, go, "Hey, look, there's a Gustav Klimt." And then they rolled into the Klimt jokes. And it's like, yes, I am that sad person. She's showing it to everybody.
You've got a pretty good Rodney there, Neil. Yeah, Sally Kellerman in the English class. That was pretty funny.
Where are we building the factory? How about Fantasyland?
That part I always remember. What are you building? A widget?
Well, now widgets are everywhere. Now we've got widgets all over the place.
And hiring Kurt Vonnegut to really do your homework.
Oh my God. So good. Kurt Vonnegut has written some of my favorite stories. Some of my favorites. There's one where there's like an alien that comes down. I haven't read it in years. I'm going to paraphrase it. And if any of our 4 listeners have ever read this or remember it, please feel free to let us know. It was like a short sort of story about an alien that's on Earth, and he sees like an accident or something. So he runs into this like diner, but his race communicates through like tap dancing and farting or something like this. And then they run him out and basically beat him to death.
It sounds interesting. I have not read that.
Man, I'll have to look that up. But Kurt Vonnegut's actually so cool because I'm going to go on because I actually like Kurt Vonnegut. There are some pages that will publish where people like kids have written him letters and asked him questions. And he basically writes back like, I'm just an old fart, but here's some things you should do. You should go write a poem and tear it up in the air. Like never read it to anybody and tear it up and throw it in the air. And like all this like really cool life advice, like go find adventures and do all this shit. Really, really good writer. Not enough pictures in the books for my taste, but still a very good writer.
One thing this movie does is it fulfills a lot of like fantasies or wish fulfillment, to have a huge monster cool dorm room and have the construction people, finish it like within a day. I always thought that was cool. They have their own hot tub and massage room, big kitchen, all that kind of stuff. And we know dorm life is the exact opposite of that. And have an Oingo Boingo play your party. That was pretty sweet as well. I did enjoy one of my favorite parts is Robert Downey Jr.'s character heckling divers.
Yeah, have you ever seen anybody do this before?
that always cracked me the F up. Super, super funny. Just using the mirror to, shine in their eyes and blasting the horn and all that kind of stuff. That was hilarious.
Okay, I just remembered the story. It was from a book called Breakfast of Champions. Yeah.
We'll have to look it up.
As for the story itself, it was entitled The Dancing Fool. Here's the pilot, a flying saucer creature named Zog, arrived on Earth to explain how wars could be prevented and how cancer could be cured. He brought the information from Margo, a planet where the natives converse by means of farts and tap dancing. He landed at night in Connecticut, witnessed a house fire, rushed into the house, farting and tap dancing, warning people about the terrible danger they were in, and then the head of the house beats him to death with a golf club, or at least smacks him with a golf club. There you have it. You're welcome.
One line I always thought was funny, and I've even used a bunch of times, is like, bring us a pitcher of beer every 5 minutes until somebody passes out.
Oh, yeah. Bring us a pitcher of beer every, 15 or 7 minutes?
Yeah.
So
until somebody passes out. And then every 20.
God, that was El Rancho in Durango. That's what that was, that place. Did you ever get a chance to go up there and do a little drinking?
I did not.
Used to go down on my... You know me. That's why I'm asking.
So the movie kind of has the same plot as Billy Madison at one point, where Thornton has to learn all his classes in a certain amount of time before he gets a review or like a quiz from all his different teachers in order to pass the class. It's almost exactly the plot of Billy Madison. After Billy Madison, he gets busted, or where what's the guy who plays the wrestler who's the teacher, Principal Anderson, gets busted, and then rats it on him, and then he has to do that.
Their fantasies were slightly different.
Yeah.
Him with Sally Kellerman and Billy Madison with the woman from Modern Family, whoever that is.
Julie Bowen, a very young Julie Bowen.
Yeah,
in that movie. Yeah, but that's another one of those stupid comedies. 90 minutes in and out, lots of gags. The person, the comedian doing their shtick. Everything, just every scene is for them to have their personality and be that, be what makes them popular. And that reminds me a lot of the SNL comedies that came out in the 80s and 90s, where you had an actor who was very popular at SNL, and they would just write a movie for them as a vehicle for them to be funny, and then just kind of trot it out there.
Like Master of Disguise? Are we talking about Master of Disguise?
Yes.
God,
the Turtle Club?
It was so bad. Coneheads I actually kind of enjoyed. That wasn't too bad, but that was...
Yeah, I still like Coneheads.
That was after their sort of tenure on Saturday Night Live. That came a little bit later, which I thought I found interesting.
But Wayne's World, of course, is the number one SNL movie that was popular. I actually would enjoy Wayne's World 2 a little bit better than Wayne's World 1, but it was so many SNL movies. They even had a Ladies Man movie, and It's Pat, and yeah, Airheads was, I think, the first Adam Sandler movie I remember. Then he got his the two best, which is still the best the funniest ones are Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. The Water Boy comes in third, and then
you don't like Wedding Singer?
The Wedding Singer's funny. I think the Wedding Singer is different because it's like a real movie. It's like it's like a romantic comedy. It's not as stupid Adam Sandler does stupid Adam Sandler stuff like Little Nicky or something like that.
I want you to take off my favorite band's shirt before you do something like make them break up.
Speaking of Rodney Dangerfield, he was in Little Nicky. He wasn't.
Yep.
He was in that one as well.
He was Satan.
Yeah, he was Satan.
Yeah.
One role that Rodney Dangerfield did that was totally unlike any other was his role in Natural Born Killers.
Jesus, was he creepy and scary in that
role. Oh my God. Yeah. He totally made you think of him differently in just a short, a few minutes in that movie where he played Mallory Knox's dad, and it's just all the awful insinuations and things that were going on in that scene in movie. Robert Downey Jr. is in that one as well. Lots of Edie McClurg is his wife in Natural Born Killers, and his secretary in this one, Marge.
They think he's a righteous dude.
This dude. Yeah, a lot of 80s movie connections in this one.
Yeah. Now, how do all those relate back to Kevin Bacon?
All right. So Kevin Bacon was in. Hold on. Let me think. I'm usually really good at this, but now I'm put on the spot. So, how do Kevin Bacon and what's her name, Juliette Lewis, meet together? Or Kevin Bacon and Edie McClurg, Kevin Bacon and Robert Downey Jr. There's got to be. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack with Chevy Chase, who's in Vacation with John Candy, who's in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with Kevin Bacon.
Okay. Kevin Bacon was in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
Don't
remember him.
Dangerfield was in Ladybugs with Jonathan Brandis before he died. Well, obviously, because if he had died, then he would have been doing like a week. He'd been Weekend with Bernie with girls soccer. His last movie was Heart's War that had Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was in 12 Monkeys. Madeline Stowe is in that, and she opened a campaign office in Iowa supporting presidential candidate John Edwards. Also supporting John Edwards, Kevin Bacon. I don't buy that one.
Yeah, that's a little stretching. Rodney Dangerfield had a weird filmography being in Ladybugs. I remember that movie. He's like the coach of a girls soccer team where Jonathan Brandis pretends to be a girl. Is that the plot of that movie?
Yeah, like his girlfriend or something. He gets in trouble. Fuck. Now I can't even think of it. But anyway, yeah, there were shenanigans and he had to coach the team and they sucked. So he got his like step kid or something to come in and do it.
Okay. So yeah, he was in Caddyshack, Easy Money, Moving. He was uncredited. Rover Dangerfield, which you had mentioned, which was an animated movie with him being a dog, which is crazy.
You know, the weird thing about that dog in that movie, it got no respect.
No respect at all. Does not say the box office of Rover Dangerfield according to Wikipedia. Interesting. Didn't say anything about its release and how much money it made. Not very popular with the critics. Then he was in Ladybugs, Natural Born Killers, Meet Wally Sparks, which I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Pirates 3D Show, Little Nicky, and last movie was the Onion movie, but that was put on hold for 5 years because he died in 2003. Interesting. He was 82 when he died.
Well, it's been a bit.
I do. Also, the most memorable part, as we're coming to a close here, is the Triple Lindy.
Yes.
I just love the use of body doubles and focusing on his face and just him, like, pretending to move and stuff like that. It's just so funny. And one part I noticed when you see Rodney double jumping into the pool the first time, you realize that he can actually dive, as you can see the toupee almost coming off the diver. I totally remember that. It's a fun movie. It's just one of those that you watch and go, hey, that was pretty funny, and then you forget about it.
And you just move along.
Yeah.
I still do. Every time I'm up somewhere high, the first thing I want to do is like I lick my thumb and I do the whole like armpit fart thing.
Yeah, the armpit fart thing. Yes, everybody wished they could do the Triple Lindy. It goes down in history. It's the best dive ever. Movie dive.
I have actually heckled at diving events and screamed to do that. Very few people get that joke. Mm-hmm. If I could swim, I sure as hell that's one of the dives I'd want to be able to learn how to do. But having grown up in a desert, my swimming skills are quite low.
I do remember Robert Downey Jr. is like, "Hey, do you want to go protest the football team?" And he's got like a helmet with a rocket, rocket through it, because it's a cryptophatic metaphor for nuclear war. I always remember, I always remember them saying that for some reason.
Maybe have mistaken for somebody else. A lot of people with blue hair these days.
Yeah, who would have known that he would be the biggest star out of that movie? I just remember Keith Gordon playing a teenager for so long. I remember him he was in the movie Dressed to Kill, is Angie Dickinson's teenage son who tries to find out her murder with Nancy Allen, which is a really good movie. We need to do that sometime. It's like an American giallo movie directed by Brian De Palma. That's pretty good. And of course, Christine, he was in that. I remember very distinctly.
Yeah. Here's why. He's a little tiny dude. He's like 5'7".
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's taller than me. I'm 5'6".
Like I said,
he's a little tiny dude. Yeah, he was in Jaws 2. I remember that. He was in Jaws 2. Home Movies. It's another Brian De Palma movie. Dressed to Kill. Kent State. Christine. The Legend of Billie Jean. Fair is Fair, Neil. Terrible movie.
Yeah, but man, the lead actress was so damn cute.
What's her name? Who was also in she was
Supergirl.
Supergirl, Helen Slater, yeah. And he's a director. He's directed a lot of TV. That's pretty good. Glad that he's still working. I definitely remember him from his early work in Christine and Dressed to Kill. Yeah. If you have not seen this movie, check it out. It is super fun. And it's a nice little relic of the 80s comedy. It's fun. And Rodney Dangerfield's awesome. And Rodney Dangerfield was awesome in his stand-up. And if you want a nice YouTube rabbit hole to go down, just look up Rodney Dangerfield on Johnny Carson. And there is one video that is super funny because he's kind of bombing sitting at the desk with Johnny, but Dom DeLuise is sitting next to him and laughing like it was the funniest thing that he's ever heard in his life, like slapping the desk and just laughing uproariously, like, just uncontrollably. And one thing that made me laugh is Johnny Carson used to do this character Karnak the Magnificent, where he would hold a envelope up to his head. He would say something, and then he would open the envelope, and it would be the answer to what he thought. And there's this one where he goes, he holds up the envelope to his head, and he goes, "Sis boom ba." And then he said, when he opens it up, it's like the sound a sheep makes after it explodes. And Ed McMahon laughs so hard that they can't do the next joke for like a minute and a half. It is so funny. Check it out on YouTube. And that is what it was as a kid, that you wanted to stay up late so you could see something like that and watch Rodney Dangerfield and Johnny Carson and all those people. That was just the essence of watching that stuff as a kid.
And him sitting there just calling out Ed McMahon for being drunk 90% of the time when he was on the show.
Yeah, there's especially when Don Rickles is on, he's talking about just making fun of Ed McMahon like crazy for being a drunk.
Yeah,
that's just it's timeless, old school stuff. It dates us as being old because we are old, but it is just something you to remember as how much they brought into your lives as a kid back in the day, wanting to stay up late and watch TV with your parents.
And stop at the Slauson cutoff. Get out, cut off your Slauson.
There's those old roasts that you see, like the original roast, and there's like the roast of Frank Sinatra, or the roast of and have all these classic people up there. And there's one with Lucille Ball, and she is so funny, and it just, you forget how great those people were. And there's this one guy who's he plays a drunk. He's not a drunk, but his name's like Foster Grant or something.
Yeah, I know the guy you're talking about.
Yeah, and he just comes up there on those roasts and just slays everybody. And especially when you watch the one with him and Don Rickles, that is just, it's fun as hell. Old school nostalgia for a bygone age. Still funny though. But next week, we're hitting the sci-fi bandwagon again with Tron.
Yes.
Tron.
I was so jazzed for this movie in 5th grade. I had the magazine that they put out before it came out. They had the comic book adaptation, like a comic book thing. I don't think it was adaptation, but there's a comic book thing I got for it. I was stoked. So many amazing video games. They had the Tron on the Intellivision. I had the Intellivision. Okay.
Yeah.
I rolled hard.
You're lucky. Yeah.
I rolled hard. Loved this movie. And I haven't seen it in years. I was disappointed with the new Tron. I thought it sucked in so many ways. So I'm going to go, if this original doesn't hold up to everything that I remembered it to, I will hold you responsible, fly to Colorado, slap you.
They're announced, they always have this big convention called D23, and this is where Disney announces all their movies and stuff. And they announced that 9 Inch Nails will be doing the music for Tron Ares, which is like the next Tron movie, where Daft Punk did the music for Tron Legacy, which has an awesome pinball machine. The Tron Legacy pinball machine is amazing. Really good pinball machine.
Nothing will beat that Intellivision game, man, with the discs and then the big, not the MCP, but the big 2-legged thing would come down. You had to get it right in the eye slit.
Well, we want to bury the lead, but so we'll talk about Tron video games next week. So check it out. Also coming up, we are going to do Bachelor Party, and then spooky season begins with horror movies galore. So, yep. It doesn't feel like the stores are pushing out the Halloween stuff even earlier than ever.
We went to Cost Plus World Market today, and my wife already has some Halloween stuff.
Lowe's has this cool like deep sea diver skeleton thing that I want to buy so bad. It's like $300, but it's really cool.
What about the one I sent you? You never responded. The one I sent you.
I know you sent me one. I can't remember which one it was though.
Yeah, the giant skeletal chicken.
Oh yes, yes, yeah, because of your pun with that one. Yes, I remember that.
What pun? I don't know what you're talking about.
The
pun?
Cock in your ear, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Maybe that.
All right. If you want to send us an email, rvspodcast222@gmail.com. We are on the threads. We're on the Facebook. We're on Instagram. So if you want to send any suggestions or anything like that, hit us up.
Threads is a lonely, lonely place.
Yeah, I was looking at it today and meant to send you some, respond to that, respond to you or our official video store.
Yes.
And thanks, everybody. Our downloads have been way up this month, so thanks a lot.
Because we're putting out content.
Yes, that makes a big difference. July was bleak. Whew.
You know we can count on at least 4 downloads. Thank you, you guys.
Thanks for the 4 people. But if you want to buy us coffee, contribute to the cause, buymeacoffee.com, look up the Retro Video Store. You can do that as well. So,
I'm going to tell you, here in the Bay Area, Phil's coffee made 1 cup at a time ain't cheap. So if you feel like buying a coffee, let's really get to it, okay?
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good week.
Thank you for listening to the Retro Video Store Podcast.